about definitions. We've talked about what a rhetorical analysis includes, definitions of context, definitions of concepts, a summary of the text, an understanding of the context in which the text is being viewed or that it was written, and then finally a point-by-point analysis. So, how do we do that? Here's our process. First of all, we want to identify the text to be analyzed. You have several options, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. But first, let's look at the process. First of all, as you read the text, remember you've summarized it so you know what its main point and key points of support are, its main claim and its claims of support. And then we want to go through and identify examples of each of the appeals. Identify examples of logos, pathos, and ethos. We can look back at the chart and see what goes in each category and understand that some things can go between categories. But we're looking for examples of logic, credibility, and appeals to emotion. We identify specific text. We're going to use that specific text as examples to illustrate what we have to say. And we're going to do that by introducing it with a signal phrase, something that we'll discuss in the next lecture. We want to make sure we've summarized the text. And then again, notice for advertisements that we're able to look at specific elements. Next, we want to look at the context. We want to know if there's information that's going to be helpful in evaluating the effectiveness of the text. Did it happen for a particular reason? Who wrote it and why? What was going on in the world when it took place? What pressures were coming to bear or goals were there? Is there a particular audience? What issues are being addressed? And what was the public response to the comment to the text? We're going to look at that in the context of some particular work, but right now understand that if you have some understanding of the context, you don't have to have a detailed understanding. Back to the arguments that we've already read. You know that Facebook Friends is in the context of a digital age with access to social networking. You know that Nervous Nellies is in the context of a culture that does treat genders differently with regard to certain behaviors and responds to behaviors differently based on gender. If we look finally at Caitlin Turnbow's art paper, we can see that hers is in the context of a world that has a profit motive in that influences some decision, and also that there is a disparity, an economic disparity. So there are some things that we know without having to do research, but if you are analyzing a text, then looking into those things is certainly legitimate. Then you draft your analysis. You need an introduction with a thesis. Notice the definition of the thesis of an analysis, what it contains. What is the main point of the text being analyzed? What is the author seeking to persuade you to do or to believe? What concepts are you going to use to analyze? This author uses logos, pathos, ethos. This author uses imagery. What does the author use? And what is the position taken in the analysis? That is, do you think that the author used the appeals legitimately? And are those appeals used effectively or ineffectively? That's your position. Not whether you agree or disagree with the text, but how effective is the author in presenting the information through the use of appeals or other rhetorical devices. Note that it is not a response to the position. You are not agreeing or disagreeing with the text. You're not agreeing or disagreeing that Facebook friends are as good as real friends, as that sort of tipped my hand, that Facebook friends have My apologies. You're not stating whether you agree or disagree with the author about the value of online friends versus the value of traditional friends. You would be evaluating whether or not the author used the appeals effectively and whether or not the author is convincing in presenting the argument. And one last thing that you want to include. If your analysis focuses on an image, such as an advertisement, then you need to include an image. I'll show you where in your text you can find instructions. Notice in your textbook on page 156 that it provides instructions about how to add a screenshot. So that means if you have an image on your computer, you can capture it, save it, and insert it into your text. Notice that when an image is inserted, that there is information that's provided below it. And we'll talk about that on the other reference page. On page 382 and 384, there is a section in designing a text that provides information about using photography and images or figures and images. It discusses how to download photographs, and you'll notice also that there is access here to, there is access to animation in the online text. If you go to my comp lab, that will show you how to do that. We'll discuss it in detail. And then notice that it says that you should label your photograph or image. Typically it is a chapter number and the number, so you can have figure 1 or figure A. But notice also over here what it suggests you do. Proper labeling will help readers understand how the graphic supports. So there is a figure, it explains what it is, a title, and then it gives information. It also provides the bibliographical citation, telling where you got that information. Again, another lecture addresses bibliographical citations, and we'll talk about how you can create those. But this information tells you how to insert an image into a document. And it also shows you how to appropriately credit that image so that your reader knows why it's there.